I want to give a huge thanks to PTCGO Store for sponsoring the channel. PTCGO Store is an awesome website where you can get PTCGO codes from the newest sets and promo items for the best prices. Be sure to click the link in my description or use code CHIP5 at checkout for 5% off your order. Again, that is code CHIP5 to get 5% off your total order. What's going on, guys? Chip here. Welcome back to another Pokemon TCG video where today I've got something special for you guys. We are sitting with the 2020 Dallas Regional Champion, Hunter Butler, the first regional champion of 2020. Hunter locking up his first regionals win after getting top 8 earlier on this year in Knoxville, I believe. So congratulations, Hunter. How are you feeling, man? Is it real to you yet? Has it set in, or where are you kind of at in that process?
Like I said before we were speaking on the call, like the once I get the money, I think it's really going to be like, all right, something happened. But it's definitely set in that I got a win because I've really like I've been playing since 2007 on and off. I've never been able to play a full season due to school, sports, jobs, whatever it may be. I only get to play normally like 3 or 4 months out of the year. So this year I pretty much played from the start all the way to now. So it's felt really good to like get that gratification on that year that I'm actually taking the whole time to play Pokemon. So it feels really good to, put the work in and get there.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the past like few months as well, it really has been kind of a highlight of a lot of people's careers would be these accomplishments you've gotten over the last few months, getting top 8 at the North American International Championships, top 16 at Worlds as well, top 8, and then to cap it off with a regionals win. Does that feel like kind of a fruition of a bunch of hard work over the last few months?
Oh yeah, and I didn't compete in Worlds this past year. They messed up that. I put
Oh, okay.
2018, 2019 on my thing, and for some reason they put 2019 because I actually missed my invite by 15 points. I got a top 32 at the Open with Spiritomb.
Got it, got it.
But 2018 Worlds, I got my invite in the last like 4 or 5 months,
I
and then
remember that, yeah.
fought through day one, lost my winning into top 8 to dead drawing to Robin, and then didn't play anything up until Greensboro. So I played nothing before Greensboro, got top 16, didn't play anything until after I got out of school in May. So Greensboro was the only thing I played in before May. And then I went 32 at Santa Clara, 64 at Madison, 64 at the Origins, and then top 8 at Nats, all in a row, and then got to go into the season with a 32 at the Open, and then the first day 2 at Atlantic City, the top 8 at Knoxville, and then the win here in 64 at Portland.
Yeah, for sure. So it seems like you said, you haven't played consistently throughout seasons in the past, but when you've been playing, your results have been the consistent thing. So that's definitely cool to see. And I was definitely happy to see you get the win as well. I know it's something that means a lot to players. I mean, a regional championship is a goal. Yeah, every player has, right? Thousands dream of it, and only a few dozen end up getting to become regional champions at some point in their career. And you did it with a unique deck for sure. So I want to spend some time talking about that. And it seems like I asked you this whenever I interviewed you on stream after your top 4 match, but it seems like when you play the Pokemon trading card game, you really do enjoy playing more unique decks. The spice, as some people would call it. You want to kind of speak to why that is. Why do you like playing these kind of rogue decks as opposed to whatever might be more popular or might be meta?
Okay, so I wish I would have said this in our interview because it was so in the moment, and I have really bad anxiety. So when I'm playing a tournament, I have to be so focused, and then as soon as the match is over, all I'm thinking about is, oh man, I still have to win the next round. So, but my love for Rogue actually came from who taught me how to play. So Steven Silvestro won 2009 Worlds with Beedrill Luxray, and I was actually able to play that deck at 2009 Worlds when I was a senior, and him and Aaron Curry. Aaron Curry is also, I'm pretty sure he's also a regional champion, and Steven Silvestro is also a regional champion. So these guys taught me how to play when I was around 10 and 11 years old, and all they did was try and break the meta. They didn't care about playing the decks that were on anybody's radar. They cared about playing a deck that beat the top decks, and they were so successful with it. And plus, all their decks were so fun, and especially back then, the 2009 to 2011 era, there were so many a plethora of amount of decks that you could play. It wasn't just this is what you have to play to be good. it was you could do whatever you want. So that's how it really started for me. And then one of my favorite players growing up was Ross Coffin, and I loved all of Ross Coffin's decks. Like I was a big fanboy, and so when I started getting a little bit older and a little bit better and a more understanding of the game, and I could start trying to break metas on my own. Obviously, it didn't start out so well. I've played a lot of crappy decks that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Throughout the tournaments, I've learned, all right, when I'm working with a rogue, this is what needs to happen by the first week of testing. This is what needs to happen by the first couple of matchups. And so, playing rogue, number one, it gives you an element of surprise. Number two, it allows the tournament to go a little bit smoother because your opponents aren't probably going to have your list even by the end of day one. They're still not going to know what's in your deck, and by day two, you're probably still catching people off guard. And the second reason is because it's so much fun. Like if I was saying Dark Pulse all weekend, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the tournament as much as I did pulling off like turn one combos, turn one Nagos, turn one Tina Chomp, all that type of stuff. If I was just dark pulsing for 300 or passing with a hoop in the active, as much as I love hoopa. Um, so rogues always really piqued my interest, and I like when I go into a tournament, I like to be able to say that I broke this meta. I'm the person that saw what was here, and I brought a deck that could compete with everything that nobody else had, and that gives me a lot of fulfillment too for the game at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Super cool to hear. I've heard so many people over the years say that Ross Coffin was an inspiration for their like deck building and stuff like that. I feel like he's someone who just so many people looked up to. He's been
God
around the game
tier.
for so long and always played rogue decks like this. So, okay, cool. Well, why don't you talk to us specifically about this deck? Where did the idea come from? I know you didn't work on it alone. So, where did the process kind of start, and how did you get to the 60 cards that we are looking at right now on the screen?
So the process started with we wanted to work with originally Guzzlord and Ganadel after the LAIC tournament. I was like, there's no Miss Magius, but there are ways to give your opponent prizes and then maybe turn on Beast Ring. And you also have Double Dragon Energy, and Guznag has a lot of HP with Belt. And so we tried a bunch of things like Reshiram and Plasma Badge and Deoxys EX to power up your Guznag and make it more hit for more damage. And we came to realize that we were neglecting a better Dragon type Pokemon in Tina Chomp. And a lot of people said this weekend, Roxy Chomp is arguably the best deck in Standard. And so then we started thinking, well, if it's the best deck in Standard, it gets way more tools and expanded and way more consistency. And you don't have to play greens, which is very, very lackluster and expanded compared to how amazing it is in Standard.
Sure.
So we were once again trying ways to power up Tina. We skipped the Plasma Badge step because we knew that one did not work. So we went straight to the Reshiram, and it was fast, but not fast enough and not consistent enough. And then your board was left with all these random Dragon Pokemon that really didn't do anything for you, like Hydreigon EX and Reshiram and stuff like that. So we wanted a way to kind of streamline the deck, and we started finding flaws in the deck, like what are you going to do against Zoric? And what are you going to do when you get dead ended? Or what are you going to do against Shocklock? Or what are you going to do against Ultra Necrozma? And that's where like the rest of the deck came in. So it started with just the two Tina Chomps, which we figured with Rescue Stretcher was enough. And then Guznag was our GX attacker. And then Noivern came in for Ultra Necrozma. And then Comfy came in for Shocklock and Dead End. And then Mimikyu came in for Mewtwo and Zorogarb. So it was like the deck was slowly starting to beat everything once we started figuring out what text we wanted. And the supporter item line was really, really easy to come up with because Mysterious Treasure searches Weezing and everything else. And it searches Lele. Cherish Ball searches like almost every GX Pokemon in your deck except for Shaman. Ultra Ball obviously searches everything. And so right around the end was when Eggs and Great Catcher came into the deck, and that's when the deck was just broken. It was just unfair, where you could go Roxy, turn one, get rid of Weezing and an Egg, presumably, because you don't want to get rid of both Weezing. Draw 6 cards, hope to get a combination of Ultra Ball and Battle Compressor and Double Dragon Energy off of the Roxy for 6, Dedenne, Shaman, Lele, which most of the time, all 3 of those Pokemon hit the board turn one, and you just run through your deck. So once we got the deck consistent enough and you were able to Great Catcher all in the same turn, that's when we knew we had something, and it really did not lose in testing. There was a night, I believe Wednesday night before the tournament, me and Frank were just doing like one last day. We were like, Thursday's going to be the break day. Wednesday, we're just going to clock in. And I did some testing with Luke River Morsa as well, another guy, part of Frank's squad. And it was like 16-0, lose a set, 14-0, lose a set,
Mm-hmm.
10-0. And I was just like, all right, guys, we just got to play this. It's just too good. Like we can't give this opportunity up. And that's when I was allowed to give the deck to my teammates, even though I worked on it. Frank was really involved with dragons, and it's funny enough. Every time me and Frank have played a deck and expanded, it's had a dragon Pokemon in it or been focused around a dragon Pokemon. So, you know, dragon decks are really for Frank. So once we got everybody together and started fine tuning the list, putting things in like Faba and Acerola, finding out counts on like double field blower, just small things, we were ready for the event by Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. So it feels like against the expected meta, you felt like you had good matchups against the, tier S, tier 1, tier 2 decks, but in expanded there are a plethora of different things out there. I remember it expanded a couple years ago, through 14 rounds at Collinsville Regionals. I played against 11 different deck archetypes, which is just nuts, and is definitely the type of thing that you can see in expanded. So when it comes
Yeah,
to those like
absolutely.
lower tier decks, was there anything you guys were like really worried about heading in?
I was worried about one singular Hoopa in anybody's dark list or Hoopa stall. I was very concerned with.
Yeah.
We didn't really have a good answer for the deck, but I felt if you can literally beat everything else but a Hoopa, like I'm fine losing to a Hoopa. Maybe I'll play one, and I ended up only playing one the whole tournament. So that was a good call for at least my rounds. Not everybody else was lucky enough to only play against one Hoopa or one Shocklock or any of these other things that happened.
Sure. Yeah, and taking a loss to the one Hoopa, like you gotta calculate, okay, I'm probably likely to only play one, maybe two of a deck that would include this card, so totally reasonable thing to do. I think a lot of times people try to overwork things and try to, take wins against every possible combination of cards they could go up against, and that's not always necessary, I don't think.
Well, you say that, but like that's what we were trying to do. We were
Sure,
like,
sure.
all right, maybe we can beat everything, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And then as we were testing, all the beating all five or six of the tier one decks. Most decks can't even beat like five or six of tier one. This is one of the first decks for me personally
Sure.
that I would be able to say that all of tier one I've covered my bases. Most of tier two I've covered my bases. And then because my deck's so aggressive, that anything kind of rogue, I could categorize into if it had special energy, Noivern can help. If it was item or if it was item heavy, Noivern could help. If they were small HP, Tina Chomp could help. And if they were stalling mechanisms, I felt like I had the speed to run them out of the game. So we felt pretty good against other rogue decks. I would say, like for instance, the Toad Tina deck that Will Jenkins and Bradner felt like an amazing matchup for us. I never got to play against one. I also played against an RCS Dialga Palkia Blounds deck, so like any ADP deck. I felt very confident about because we could one shot the ADP. So we were prepared for random stuff. We were taking the loss to Hoopa because, like you said, you can't beat everything. You can try, but that's not always going to work.
Sure. All right. Well, I think that about covers the pre-tournament stuff. You went through really well about like kind of how all these cards came to be. So why don't you just kind of hit us with what day one of the tournament looked like for you? 9 rounds, day one. It's always a long day. But yeah, how did those first 9 rounds go for you?
So round one, I actually don't think I didn't get to see like exactly what I was playing against, but what I thought was standard Malamar was what I played round one because I didn't see any expanded cards other than an Ultra Ball, and I only saw two Inkays because I just Roxied and linear attacked them both games. So I maybe finished my round in like 8 minutes.
Jeez.
Round two, I played against. Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of my rounds went really fast. So I'm sorry if this is like not full of information. A lot of my opponents scooped really fast to try and save time to reverse 2-0 me, and that really didn't work out for a lot of the players.
Yeah.
So then I played against Zorogarb after that, and round two, and I didn't prize Mimikyu game one, so I got a turn one. He went Bridget, I Roxied, bench Mimikyu. He picked up Mimikyu and read what it did. Instantly scooped. Knew he wasn't going to be able to trade because he had benched all four Zeruas. So that was just pretty much it for him. And I had only played about, I believe, at least less than 6 or 7 item cards. So I was pretty good on Trash Lynch. And then game two, he ended up bricking and just opening a Ranguru, and I went turn one, kill it with Calamitous Slash with the Coco. Then round three, I played against Archie Stoys. He played no Stealthy Hood, so he played no out to Mimikyu for his Mewtwo. And to achieve Archie's turn one, he had to fully bench his board with two Shamans, a Dedenne, an egg that he had started with a Floatstone, and then the Stoys, and then obviously his active Mewtwo. So I literally just went. My turn was so fast. It was just bench Mimikyu, attach energy to active Tina Chomp, linear attack. He picked up Mimikyu and realized he literally couldn't attack with anything on his board. Ended up scooping, and then game two he didn't get the Archies off, and he had wasted two superiors. He had Ultra Ball away two superiors to Shaman to set up and miss Archies, and I was able to get the turn one Calamitous Slash on a Mewtwo with Roxy, so taking a 3-5 knockout. So he ended up scooping after that, not even playing the game out. Round four, I played against Mew 3. It was Kieran Wagner. And round one, game one, we had a really close game, but it came down to him not being able to remove my Mimikyu because he wasted his blowers on Chaotic Swell. So when I benched Mimikyu, I put Fighting Fury Belt on it. So he had no way to knock it out, and he was out of Field Blower. So I was able to lock his Mewtwo's out of attacking, and he had already discarded Lopunny and the Garchomp and Giratina on his end. And then game two, he Iron Ruled like turn one or turn two, and I actually didn't know what Iron Rule did, which normally I kind of know what cards do. This one I didn't know what it did, so I had to pick it up, and I couldn't attack, and that kind of stumbled me. And I walked into a turn later. I walked into a cantankerous beatdown knockout. He didn't have a GX marker, so when the two turns went down the road, I didn't think about Iron Rule being a GX attack because nothing happened. So it's not like this big knockout that I remember happening or a bunch of damage being spread. Like I would remember, hey, you already GX'd. But because nothing happened, I didn't remember it. He didn't remember it. So we both like carried on our game. And then after he knocked me out, I promoted and I was going through my hand. I coached Kieran Wagner, so we had a really friendly game. And I was like, "Well, you don't have your GX attack anymore, so I think I'm pretty free to promote this." And then he said, "Bro, I GX twice," and then he scooped up his card. So he actually admitted it to me. It's nothing I had to point out to him. He missed it as well. And after that round, he played with a GX counter. He like I said, he's my student, so I know he wasn't trying to cheat against me. It was an honest mistake. And when you're playing Mewtwo, I feel like you could GX like 11 times and it would be fine. Like you have so many GX attacks, you might get lost in the sauce a little bit. So that's how that round went, unfortunately, for him. And then round five, at this point, I'm 4-0. So I'm feeling real good. I'm like, all right, the deck is really running on all cylinders and I'm getting good matchups. And then I hit my first dark, my first and only dark, by the way. I only played one dark the whole tournament.
Interesting.
And this matchup I felt was really, really good as long as you didn't prize Comfy. And so game one was able to get Double Dragon down and Comfy. And he tried powering up Sableye Tyranitar, and he actually played a Choice Band. So he had a way to use the GX attack and one-shot at Tina Chomp. But I ended up using Roxy and Mimikyu to spread onto the Sneasel. And so he mismanaged his energy thinking that he could power up the Mega Sableye down the road and ended up biting him because he was able to move his energy due to Mimikyu. And then game two, I think he missed like 2 or 3 Elixir, and he ended up powering up a Darkrai GX and swinging into me. And I was able to Acerola, power up a Guznag with Coco, and just start taking prizes with Guznag, and he was never able to knock it out. Then round 6, I think that was the streamed one with Mewtwo. Yeah, no, I was 6-0. So before I played Mewtwo on stream, I also played Mewtwo the round before. He only had one Stealthy Hood. He prized at game one, and he had already seen me play. He sat next to me the round before. So as soon as he checked for his prizes and saw that his Stealthy Hood was prized, he immediately scooped. I didn't know that until after the game, but I know that now. So he immediately scooped. I didn't know what happened. I was just like, oh, free win before I even played a turn. All right, let's go. So yeah, exactly. And then game two, he gets his hood and he combos a knockout with Jigglypuff because I had to go really, really deep for an energy. A lot of these games throughout my day one and day two, I really, really, really had to go deep on items and Pokemon to try and find Double Dragon energy. It was so hard to find, and it came down to a crucial turn of me great catching up a Shaman and linear attacking a different shaman to put, I think it was up to, I want to say it was up to like 100 damage or 90. It might have been 90 damage. No, it was 80 because one shaman's 110. It was 80 damage. So I could set up this play where I go Roxy, pop Tina, kill the shaman on the bench, and take a kill on a Mewtwo all at one turn because I'd killed a Giratina that he left acted. I distorted it to death.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically had to make sure that my one heavily damaged Giratina on the bench did not get attacked, and I could linear attack with this brand new one that didn't have the double dragon. And he didn't have Guzma to kill my heavily damaged one with the double dragon, so I was able to take that game. The next game was on stream, which was not really much of a game on either of us side. Game one, I digged super hard for energy and whiffed a good amount of turns. I think like 2 turns. And then game 2, he opened alone Mewtwo EX, I think, the damage change.
Yep.
And I was able to turn one kill it, which was great. Oh, no, I went first and got to attach energy, and then he attacked me and I killed it, which is great. I didn't even have to damage it because Mewtwo has 170 HP and I do 160, so with a belt, just a raw 170. And he drew past and tried to, like, a great catcher stall me, but thank goodness I held my float stone and did not put that down so I could free retreat. And then game 3, the same thing happened. I'm not sure what Pokemon he started, but it wasn't a good one, and he went for a draw pass. And I benched Mimikyu and attacked him, and I think he scooped. I'm not sure if I even took 6 prizes that game. Then the last round, not last round, I was 7-0. Then I play another Mewtwo. So now I played 5 whole Mewtwo's day one, which is like my best matchup. So I'm like, Tom is just giving me the day of a lifetime at this point. Like, I should have played Hoopa Stall or Shocklock between 6-0 and 7-0. They were sitting next to me playing Mirror. So I had 2 Shocklocks next to me playing Mirror, and then a Hoopa playing a Shocklock, and then a Hoopa playing Mirror, and then Shemansky playing a different Hoopa deck. And I'm sitting there playing like the one random attacking deck that's at my record. And everybody around me is just like, I can't wait to get you. You're coming next. And I ended up getting Tristan Lackey, who was also 7-0, I believe, or 6-0-1, whatever his record was. Really great guy. I played him a couple times over the years, so we know each other. And he knew the matchup was bad, and he did not draw too well game 1, missing a couple energy. I also missed a couple energy. It was kind of slow back and forth, but the real MVP of the weekend or the whole tournament, honestly, is Mimikyu. Mimikyu just puts in so much work against all these decks that have to function on abilities.
Yeah.
And, you know, he really didn't have the stuff to take big KOs. And then game 2, I was able to get a crazy playoff. I went first and attached energy on the bench. And then he went use Altaria GX's attack with his Mewtwo with a I think he had a Stealthy Hood on it. Yeah, he had a Stealthy Hood on it, and all he had was a bench to Dene. And I was like, all right, if I can great catcher to Dene, Roxy, put damage on Mewtwo, hopefully draw my second great catcher at backup, and draw Choice Man off Roxy, Shaman, Day. I had all 3. If I get all of this, then I can kill his Mewtwo. And all he has left is a Dedenne. And I ended up going great catcher, bring it up, Shaman, Day, Roxy, drew the great catcher did backup, drew the Choice Man, and was able to knock it out. So I was able to get out of the Altaria lock and also knock him out. And he was left with the Day in the active and wasn't able to move it the next turn. And I just took a Calamus slash on the Day and was able to Guznag for game. And then my last round was my first loss of the tournament. And it was to Hoopa. I had no way to win. I tried. I end and removed Beach and distorted 4 turns in a row. He had a Faba or a Plumeria every time. So shout out to Boston. He drew the stones against me. And also his list was super good. He had 4 Reds challenge so that when he would get end, he could draw into a combination of Reds challenge or actually the Beach or Stevens or teammates or any of these cards and just immediately get back Beach or get Munchlax to put Beach back on top. So I was never able to stop him from getting Beach. In game 2, I was hoping for like a Regirock opening and a pass so that I could turn 1 kill him. And I got another Hoopa. And so I said, I'm not going to sit through this. I'm going to go eat dinner. And I gave him the win. He had earned it at that point. I wasn't going to make him sit through it. He was a really nice kid, and it's super unfortunate that he got DQ'd, although it was kind of an integral thing for me to win this tournament was him being not him specifically being DQ'd, but the stall being out of the tournament, Szymanski not doing too well, like staying out of my bracket, Gibby bodying me round one so I can get into the attacking deck. So day one I ended 8-1, and then on to day two I played Gibby round one, and I thought the matchup was close. I thought the matchup was favored for him, but I was close enough to get a chance. He
Hmm.
beat me game one pretty handily, fobbing me 4 times, so that was nice.
Is that
The
really what
Cynthia,
the matchup comes down to in your mind? Is just the fact that he can get rid of all of your energies with Faba?
yeah, absolutely. And Cynthia Caitlin was a great inclusion on his part because he can chain Faba and chain supporters, whereas the other list is kind of just like, did I Pidgeotto into a supporter this turn?
Sure.
Nope. I'm gonna pass or attack or whatever. But I did have outs to Plume. I did have outs to knocking out Rowegg, and that's why game two I was able to beat him. I went first, was able to dump a bunch of my items out of my deck and burn all my VS Seekers and have Double Roxy, Sycamore, my Guzma, and my Acerola and my Faba still in my deck, and everything else gone. So I was able to just really, really have my deck thin so that N wasn't a factor, and I was able to turn two knock out Rowegg, and turn three knock out the item block Plume, and he chose not to set up the basic block Plume because he obviously saw Noivern in my list and knew that that wasn't going to go well for him. And game three was so close. I needed like one more ounce of time to scratch for a tie. But little did I know that loss was actually going to be so beneficial for this tournament because it got me out of the stall bracket. And then Gibby just bodied all the shock locks, stalls, all of them, just got rid of all of them for me. So shout out to Gibby for doing the legwork. Uh, then round two, I played against the coolest deck I had seen all weekend besides my own, and that was ADP Blounds. And that matchup was super close. Game one, I was able to. He opted for me to go first, and I was like, "All right, well, we're about to do some things." So I was able to get an energy down on Tina Chomp and get damage on the active RCSD Alba Palkia. He ended up GXing the turn two. I immediately knocked him out, and he didn't draw Beast Ring, and he was only able to bursting burn me, and I had the Guzma to take out the Blount with Nagano Guzzlord. He knew he couldn't one shot a 320 HP Pokemon with a belt, so he scooped. Game two, he opted to go first, or opted for me to go first again. I had a little bit of a lackluster start, but less than the first one, and he had an amazing opening. Just double dragon, welder to bench Blount, uh, get out the ultra space so we can search another Blount. Um, have Cherish Ball for dinner and get a fresh fresh card of fresh hand of six. Oh my goodness!
Yep.
And he set up really well, and then I wasn't able to combat that board. I couldn't deal with ADP doing 180 and putting 3 energies on a new Blacephalon, or just knocking out the Blacephalon because then the ADP has double dragons to discard his fires. So I scooped that game. I knew I wasn't going to be able to win. Game three, I obviously opted to go first. Was able to set up a lot more flawlessly. He went for the turn one GX. I ended up knocking him out, and he did not have the explosive Beast Ring turn that he did have in the game two when I chose to knock out. I forget what I chose to knock out, whether the Blount or the ADP. I chose one, and he Beast Ringed a bunch after that, and I knew it was over. So I ended up getting a win against that super cool deck. Shout out to the guy; he was super nice.
Hmm.
Then the next round, I played against the ADP Bird Trio deck. It was kind of standard, but had Nest Balls and Prism Energies. I think the matchup was super favored for me. He had really no way to deal with Tina Chomp, and Jirachis are also really weak, so they're really nice linear attack pickoffs. And I can be able to one shot the bird and the Guznag and the ADP. So that matchup was pretty easy. I don't think a lot of crazy stuff happened. Although he did take a 5 prize turn on my Mimic. I opened Mimikyu and I had to bench Shaman. And then once I benched Shaman and drew, I realized what had happened. I was like, oh no, this is 4 prizes, right? Or 3 prizes right here. So all I need to do is knock on a tag team. And thank goodness we didn't lose that series. And then so at this point I'm 2-1, and I'm thinking I can ID twice. I offered to ID against Pablo. He didn't want to because he was at 29 and I was at 30. So I can understand why I didn't want to ID because he wasn't guaranteed.
Hmm.
And we played, and he was playing the Dustnor and Trevenant Melodic deck, which I think my deck actually had a pretty good chance of beating because I have GGN. So once he powers up his Trebnor, I can just GGN it to the discard pile, and if he emptied my hand, the Gengar is doing no damage, so my tag teams just have free reign. So game 1, I was able to do that. Just go first, get down a double dragon. He does the GX attack. I pass. He empties my hand, and I was able to kill his Trevnor, or I was able to GG end his Trevnor, and then that was the end of that game. Obviously, there was no way for him to attack or get back into the game. Game 2, I got my hand full sent away, and I wasn't able to get a double dragon down. And then he actually did the Ace Trainer, gave me a double dragon and obviously 2 other dead cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I laid out the 3 cards. I'm like, please, just give me this double dragon. Put the other cards away. And away the double dragon went, and away that game went. So I was able to win that one.
So close.
And then it was close. And then game 3, I was fortunate enough that he opened Trevnor Pass, and I was able to turn 1, knock him out just cleanly with Roxy's and do the full 270. So at this point, I was 3-1 and knew I was going to ID into top 8. So knew I didn't have to play the last round. I ID'd against Simon. Once again, a unfortunate DQ. I don't really think he deserved it. He's a really nice guy, and I actually saw his sleeves because we were shuffling up to play because he didn't know if I wanted to ID. So he was already shuffling, and I said, I'm down to ID if you want to. He was like, oh, thank goodness I didn't think you wanted to because the matchup was good. But I wanted him in top 8 so that I could have possibly played him.
Right.
And that's how the end of Swiss Day 2 went. And this is before I found out he was DQ'd. So in my mind, I thought I was going to play either Shemansky, which would have been a loss, or I was going to play Eggrow, which would have been a loss. And then I'm sitting there, and I hear that he got DQ'd and that the 9th seed guy was Gardevoir, and that's who I was going to be playing. And it was like all of the stars aligned. I was like, here we go. A good matchup in top 8. And going into top 8, the guy sits down. I'm not trying to talk bad on the guy, but he sat down and he goes, I played a couple of your guys' deck. This feels like a really good matchup for me. And I'm just like, okay. So he starts shuffling up, and I knock out his. He goes first. He chooses to go first. I knock out his Guardy going second on the first turn. He ends up fairy songing, and I knock out the Guardy on my second turn. So that game was I maybe finished this match in 8 minutes, and then game 2 decided to do the same thing, go first. This time I wasn't able to knock out his Gardevoir on turn 1, but I was able to damage the active one, and he decided to fairy song onto his bench one, and then I linear attacked the bench one, but he didn't have Aromatisse. So he had 3 energies in play, but didn't have any way to attack. So then the next turn he fairy songed again. So he put 4 energies on and he attached to his bench one. So he has a full 5 energies on his bench Guardy. And I was able to just great catcher it up, kill it, and then all he had left was the Guardy with the 1 energy. I was able to easily knock that out because I linear attacked it the first turn of the game. So that matchup went super quick. And then I looked over, and everybody else's match was already done. So I had no clue who had won. I was like, oh, my God, everyone finished their match so quickly.
Yeah.
And we had to sit through and watch stupid Eggrow mirror for 35 minutes while we waited. And, so then I learned I'm playing John Egg, who beat me earlier this year in top 8. I literally drew past both games. He beat me in like 4.5 minutes. It was embarrassing. And I thought I had a really good chance at beating him that tournament. And also, I thought I had a really good chance of winning that tournament because my matches in top 8 were amazing. So we sat down. Game 1, Mimikyu put in the finest of work. He could not set up at all. He also made kind of a misstep of grabbing his 60 HP Trubbish instead of his 70 HP one.
Yep.
Not sure what he was thinking there, if he prized it or not, or what happened. And then game 2,
he ended up tweeting that because he ended up benching the 70 HP one later in the game, and he said that he had looked through his deck, and he said, I swear y'all, I thought that the 70 HP one was not there. Like he just missed it, I guess.
Right.
Through his deck, grabbed the 60 HP one.
Yeah.
That ended up being a really big deal since you were able to go blow away bomb, distortion door, linear attack, knock it out. And it seems like that's really what you wanted to do. You want to talk about why targeting down the Trubbish there was really key for you?
Right, absolutely. So Garb isn't necessarily the hugest hindrance of my deck, considering most of my GX Pokemon are hitting the board in turn 1, so Garb doesn't stop that. But what does hurt my deck a lot is Trash Lynch, because I have a bajillion items.
Yeah.
So in that matchup, you know that Zoroark can't trade, and they can't effectively trade with your Pokemon either. because your 3 prizes, you're huge, you have Acerola, and if they're attacking into you with Zoroark, you're 100% winning the game. You're able to knock out Lele, knock out Zoroark, and probably kill 2 babies with linear attack.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, the babies end up being like a Ditto and a Trubbish, or a Zorua and a Trubbish, or along the lines of that. So when game 2 came around, I think I may have made a slight misplay. I had a chance to attack with my damaged Chomp and actually linear attack the Ditto while he had his Trash Lance, and then on the following turn, Guzma. But my mindset was, well, he kind of wants to trade. So I feel like the Ditto's going to turn into a Zoroark. So I was like, all right, I'll just Roxy, make sure he can't trade. And then Guzma the Trash Lance with the Guzzlord, so that I know for sure you will not have enough items to kill me, even if you do evolve it. You need Choice Band and Psychic, and you have no trade. And he ended up shaming. I think he top decked when I watched, or I think he told me he top decked Super Odd,
Yep.
and then Shaman literally into Psychic Choice Band were the first 2 cards he shamaned into off his Shaman for 3 or 4 or whatever. So he drew really well, and he played really well too. Recognizing that he needed to take out just 2 tag teams, not smacking into my Guzzlord was obviously not the play. So that game was really close. And the only game I've ever in testing and in the tournament, the only singular game I've ever dropped a Zoroark was to John. So congrats to him, because he really had to move through that game smartly.
Mm-hmm.
And then game 3, Mimikyu put in the finest of work, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 50 to 60% sure he must have prized Trubbish, because he didn't bench it.
He prized double
So
Trubbish game 3, yeah.
okay, cool. So I'm not dumb.
Yeah.
All right, so I was like, why is he not grabbing Trubbish?
Yep.
And
He
so
prized double
I
Trubbish.
was
So
able,
all he had was the Ditto as his only out to get Garbiter in play.
right. And I thought it was interesting too. He had Mew in his deck, and I never saw Mew the other 2 games.
It was prized in the second game.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the second game it wouldn't have came up, but in the first game, the Mew would have been huge to keep that Trubbish alive.
Yeah, for sure.
So game 3, I think I was able to combo off on a big turn with a Roxy, and then I took a knockout on Lele, great catching it up after I Roxied, and then he went to draw his hand off a Chorus, I think, or after evolving to Zoroark, and seeing that he didn't draw an energy, he scooped. And so then I was into the finals. And I want to point something out that a lot of people, a couple of my friends were like, yo, you celebrated so hard after beating him. Like, that was a good matchup. But that's not why I was celebrating. One of my longtime friends, Jeff Chris, who's known for playing the Blacephalon Pidgeotto deck, I've known him since he started playing in the Orlando area. And when I took my headphones off, I looked into the crowd, and I'm realizing all at once that I'm about to play Aggro, and I'm probably going to lose this tournament. And Jeff and me lock eyes immediately. Everyone's like clapping or whatever, and me and him lock eyes, and nobody's talking, and all I hear him say is Guardian won. And that's when I was like, let's go. I finally have, like, all I was thinking was I have a chance. I wasn't celebrating that I beat John. I was celebrating that I had a chance to win the tournament. So I wanted to clarify that I wasn't trying to celebrate on anybody. I was just hyped that I wasn't going to sign the slip. So then I got to go into the finals, and I had a crazy 1 to kill Spritzy. That was on stream. So if any of you guys want to go watch that, that was probably one of the greatest combos I pulled off. Both game 1 and game 2, I pulled off crazy turn 1 combos, and Roxy really put it in there. And I think, game 2, the miss on the computer search was really, really bad. He was looking for when he looked for his hand, because he told me he was looking for a card to discard with Cynthia Caitlin. And then he had realized that he had discarded the Cynthia Caitlin with the computer search.
Yeah.
And that's when he had told me, look, I had messed up. And then I comboed off, and he had told me, look, if you kill this Gardevoir turn 1, I'm going to scoop. And I ended up, as I was doing it, I saw my hand with computer search and Battle Compressor and VS Secret. And I was like, oh my God, I've never even opened these 3 cards in the whole tournament. This is like, I have a really, really high chance of taking the KO turn 1. And he went to play Cynthia, and I flashed Guzma telling him that I was going to kill his Spritzy. I know a lot of people, they haven't messaged me or talked to me about it, but I'm sure a lot of people were puzzled why he scooped after I showed the Guzma. It's because I had told him that I was going to Guzma his Spritzy, and then obviously I had Chaotic Order already set up on the bench. So once he knew that I had the Guzma to kill his Spritzy to take the 1 prize, he had ended up conceding to me. So I know I had no way to kill the Megalopunny in any shape or form, but I definitely had a bunch of ways to kill the Spritzy. So and that's how the tournament went for me.
Well, there you go. You find yourself regional champion, 5K richer, 200 CP richer, putting yourself, like you said at the beginning, in a great spot to potentially make a push for that EUIC stipend. And with the unique deck as well, one of my favorite things about Expanded is always just seeing like the crazy things people come up with when they really like take time and test a lot. And it seems like that's what you guys did, tested a lot and found a really cool deck. And so the fact that you're able to win with it makes it even better. So congratulations, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and none of this would be possible without my team or Team Gas or Frank. All of these guys really put in a lot of time with this deck and every deck that I've played at any event this year or the year before, especially with Team Cutter Tap. Like, we're pretty transparent with each other. I'm sure most teams are transparent with what decks they play. But some teams aren't all like DDG where you all have to play the same deck. Sure. And Cutter Tap's one of those teams where we often choose to not play the same deck all the time. We've done it a lot more this year, and I'm sure it's gonna go up a little bit after this win. That they're gonna trust me a little bit more on my wacky decks and not put them to bed so fast.
Sure, for sure. All right, man. Well, you've given a few shout outs here, but if there's any other like social media plugs or any other shout outs you want to throw in here at this time, I always like to do this for people when they come on, so feel free. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. So for sure, shout out to Team Cutter Tap, Finn Lynch, Hale Overnight, Joe Sanchez, Carter Barsh, Mike Morin. I think we're one of the best upcoming teams in the game right now. We have, everybody on our team has a top 800 regional except for Carter. And Carter's first year playing last year, he had 6 day twos for his first year playing. So yeah. We have a really good group of guys and a really underrated. So I'm hoping to put us on the map and hope that they can put us on the map as well. Shout out to Team Gas, Luke River Morsa, Frank Persick, Kieran Wagger, Nick Robinson, Layboy. I know Layboy didn't really work with us on the deck, and Kieran didn't really either, but Luke River Morsa was a huge help with me this past week. He tested probably close to 12 to 16 hours over the week with me, and I really appreciate him putting in the work, as well as Frank. I can't even name the amount of hours me and Frank have sat on Skype or PCCO playing. I could go on for days about how much we've tested in any format. So shout out to those guys. Shout out to anybody in Florida who loves playing Pokemon. I love my Florida scene and my locals. They always support me and the other pro players like Igor Costa, Jenny Pendarvis, Danny Altavilla, Jose Marrero. I feel a really good community, and I love all the people in my area. And shout out to you for having me, and shout out to Pokemon for allowing me to make some money.
Absolutely, bro. Happy to have you on. Was super excited to see you win as well. So congrats once again. Guys, definitely be sure to leave a like down below if you enjoyed. Appreciate Hunter coming on. Definitely a lot of great information to gather from this video. And I guess let me ask you one more thing before we close it out totally.
Sure.
There is actually a lot of expanded as we move forward the rest of the year. If you actually look at the schedule, besides Toronto, which is in Canada, obviously, the next standard regionals, so the first standard regionals in the actual United States isn't until May 8th. So we've got a long time, lots of expanded. Obviously, next time we have it, it'll be in Collinsville, and there will be a new set legal. I know you're just coming back from the trip, so you might not have had time, but is there anything from Sword and Shield that you think is going to have a huge impact? Or is this deck still something that people need to keep on the radar?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that because actually before this phone call, I had finally looked at the set list for the first time today.
Perfect time.
So I got to look at the set list. The only card I knew before this was Galarian Zigzagoon because I played in 2010. I love Crobat G, so hearing that Crobat G was back really excited me. And speaking about Crobat G, I think Alolan Zigzagoon or Galarian Zigzagoon has a huge spot in this deck. Being able to Rock Seed away and just being able to go bench it, put a counter on a Pokemon that I want. You could potentially play Sycamore and Great Catcher and bench Zigzagoon and still get your combo off. So I think Zigzagoon is something that could definitely be added to the deck. I think it will be added to the deck in Standard for sure too. I know we're talking about expanded here.
Yep.
I think Snorlax VMAX has the biggest target on its head for expanded tournaments going forward due to it literally having a Zoroark-like attack and having Zoroark-like support with Cincino.
Yep.
So with the new supporter rule not being able to bridge it, I think Zoroark's pretty much dead. You're going to have to play like Nest Balls and stuff. But I don't think Cincino Snorlax, this version of Zoroark, is dead because you're able to use Quick Ball and Nest Ball and Winona, which is amazing. You can search all your colorless Pokemon. So I feel like that's a deck that's definitely going to see some play. I think Archie's gets a little cooler. You get the nice VMAX Pokemon. Don't know
You don't think the
like how I
supporter
would fit it
change
in.
like hurts it too much?
So here's my thing with Archie's. So
Yep.
Archie's a high roll deck, anyways, right?
Sure.
So if we're going into this new format where we're like, if I'm going to choose to go second and I draw really well, and I get Archie's and I take a knockout, and my opponent hasn't played a supporter and they don't have another Pokemon, I'm able to take the game right there.
Yeah.
So, and I think that to speak to how experiment's going to work is really going to have to come from what deck do you pick to play in the tournament, and what do you choose to do? Do you choose to go first, or do you choose to go second?
Mm-hmm.
Because from pretty much almost all of time, you've almost always wanted to go first.
For sure.
But now I'm not so sure
Right. It's making people
if you want
think.
to go. Yeah, exactly. Now I'm not so sure if you win the coin flip, if you want to go first, or if you want to let your opponent go first. How many ball cards are you going to put in your deck? How many supporter cards are you going to put in your deck now? Are we going? Are all basic decks going to be outclassing the evolved decks due to this new rule change? I don't know. We're a little too far from that. But as far as decks go, Snorlax VMAX for sure. Frostmoth, obviously being a stage 1 Blastoise, has got to have some potential, at least some. Uh, the what was the other card that I was really interested in? There's one more. Oh my god, I totally forgot it. It was it's a VMAX Pokemon, the Stone Joiner
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
VMAX. Okay, so I think he has a huge potential and expanded with the addition of all the fighting support and Focus Sash
Yep.
being like 300 bajillion HP, Focus Sash, healing yourself, Malolana, all these things. I think Stone Joiner definitely has a place, and it's a basic deck. So I think basic decks are going to be, at least in my mind right now, how I'm thinking about it, I think basic decks will be at a higher advantage, but there might be evolution decks that can handle not being able to play a supporter on turn 1. We'll have to find out on that one.
We will have to see for sure. Well, appreciate your little bit of insight on that and all the insight for sure on the Garchomp Tina deck. And yeah, look forward to seeing you play the rest of the year. Hope to see you find more success, man. And I appreciate you coming on once again.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate it. And I also hope I get more success. So hopefully we're done scrubbing from now on.
For sure. Hopefully we have more interviews coming later this year, yeah?
Yes, man. Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Once again, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Shoutouts to PTCGO Store for their support as well. Definitely make sure you use code CHIP5 on the website if you want to purchase PTCGO codes. Thanks again to Hunter for coming on, and we're going to get out of here, guys. Until next time, take care.